You're here to talk about your new book called One Nation, and I will tell you that one thing that sets you apart is at the top of every chapter heading, there is a scripture verse.
Yes.
And nobody has the balls to do that anymore.
From the book of Proverbs, which was written by the wisest man who ever lived.
And I mean, here you are in a time where we have literally the political correct police coming after us. You describe how we should react to them on, I think it's page 12. Tell us how we should react to the politically correct police.
Well, actually, I talk about them throughout the book. But basically, their only power is the power of intimidation. And if we decide to ignore them, they have no power. And we need to understand the role that they play in manipulating people who really don't think deeply for themselves. And if we can get people to be a bit more knowledgeable and a lot braver, because that is really the key, bravery right here. People decide, let me just go along to get along, and that way nobody will come after me, nobody will call me a name. And I just decided a long time ago, I absolutely will not submit to the PC police. I will continue to say what needs to be said, and I mentioned before, most of the people in Nazi Germany did not believe in what Hitler was doing, but did they open their mouths? Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. Now, of course, the left then said, Carson says America is the same as Nazi Germany. Of course, they love to grab any kind of word, distort it, and, this is very effective for people who don't think for themselves.
I was amazed yesterday, really amazed. I've been on The View before. It is a chamber of hell. And you were allowed to actually speak, and they treated you with respect. I thought something was wrong with them, or something must be wrong with you. I've never seen them react this way. And you were saying the same things, just in a more eloquent way, that most people are saying on both sides of the aisle, and that is, hey, let's just have some personal responsibility here. Let's not forget what brought us to the table.
Well, I'd had a chance to speak with Whoopi Goldberg before we actually went on set.
So did I. It didn't work for me.
At first she thought that we were very much opposite. But as we began to talk, I said, we actually want the same things, and we can't allow ourselves to be manipulated by those who want to always remove your cohesiveness and create division.
Well,
here's what's happening to America right now.
Here's the thing that, and because I had that same conversation with Whoopi Goldberg, and Whoopi and I think, were like, weren't we talking at one point, Stu? You'll have a better memory. Weren't Whoopi and I talking about, there are many things that we can connect on. We're not that different. You remember?
That sounds really familiar.
Yeah, and then it just all went to hell. But one of the things that I don't understand what she was talking about, but I want you to reiterate what you talk about, and that is welfare. What Whoopi was saying yesterday when I saw this was, look, I'm not ashamed of being a welfare mom. I got off of welfare and I made something of myself. And then she went in and said, the system is all broken. But as soon as anybody like me would say, look, the system is completely broken, we need to help those people who cannot either legitimately permanently, or for a temporary time, they can't do it themselves. We do need to help each other and help those people, but we want to urge them to get off of that.
And that is really the key. And I think conservatives need to grasp this concept. Taking someone, patting them on the head, patronizing them, saying, I'm going to take care of all your basic needs, is really incredibly cruel. Because what that does is it generates nothing but dependency. And now we have intergenerational dependency. And I personally don't believe that most of those people actually want that. And if they could actually see the other side and see a way out, they would probably take it. But the reason that they're not seeing it is because of the economic policies that have been put in place that actually keep our economy suppressed. It is ready to explode if we created the right environment. But there are those, I firmly believe, who don't want it to explode, because if it does, there will be no appetite for all of these social programs. But what conservatives need to understand is we have to get into position so that we can fix the economy. And once we've done that, then we can talk about entitlement reform. We should not talk about entitlement reform before we fix the economy and make sure that people can clearly see the way out. At the same time, we need to grasp concepts like Muhammad Yunus, who won a Nobel Prize for his microeconomics platform, which has been used very effectively to bring people out of poverty in Pakistan and India. We'd have to invest a little more money here to do it, but the same model works well, and it allows people through their own hard work to climb out of poverty. And I think a lot of people would be quite willing to invest in that, knowing that they may not get a physical return on it, but they get a tremendous emotional, psychological return.
We talked about this on the air just yesterday, that I think there's a lot of people in our audience alone that we could say, hey, here's somebody who is looking for investment dollars. This person is looking for investment dollars, and put a pool of money together, and you can move your money and invest in who you want. And it's not the standard investment. It's just, let's give this person a shot. It would work.
Exactly.
But the government shuts that down.
Yeah. I mean, we've always taken care of our own people. Back in the days before there was no overriding federal government, and there were communities separated by hundreds of miles all over America, and somebody got hurt, everybody pitched in, took care of them. We've always taken care of people. We're compassionate people. Let's not let people paint us as anything other than that.
May I ask you a question about an op-ed that you did? Where was it? In the National Review, I think I saw. And you were supporting a Republican who is pro-choice, and you said you confronted her with that, and she said that she was pro-life in her own life, but she didn't like the government's rules. And I'm with that 110%. I think progressivism is the disease, and that is this administrative state that we're in right now. I want maximum freedom. However, I believe, and you may not, I believe abortion is murder.
I do too. Absolutely.
Well, but hang on just a sec then. Hang on, because then you should. I mean, I wouldn't support anybody who says, hey, they're, going ahead and stabbing somebody to death. You have a choice to do that, and I disagree with you. Okay. I mean, murder is murder, and if it's not murder, then why would you?
I totally understand, but here's my point. It's going to be a lot easier to bring someone along who agrees with you 90% of the time than somebody who opposes you 100% of the time. So one of the things that conservatives have to understand is there is a pragmatic approach. We have to get a critical number of people in place so that we can move the pendulum in the correct direction. As it's moving, it doesn't mean that we abandon all those things that you're talking about. We can come back and visit those. But as I said, if the ship's going off of Niagara Falls, the barnacles, we can get them off later. Let's turn the ship around.
Well, you bring up the Supreme Court, and I think you bring up a very good point that whoever the next president is will have 2 to 3 Supreme Court justices. Right. And if it is another progressive, we lose. The problem is, I think that conservatives have been pragmatic. Conservatives really have spent the last, in my lifetime, it seems like we're always the ones going, okay, well, we'll do that, but because we have to do this, but you're going to help us with this, right? And they never reach back across. It's always moving the ship in the other direction, which is one argument.
We can't count on them. We cannot count on help from them. We're going to have to, conservatives, do this ourselves. But
so is there in pragmatism, is there no line? Because murder is probably the biggest line out there. If you believe that abortion is murder, then there is really no line of compromise.
There's no line of compromise in your belief. However, recognizing that we live in a diverse society and that we have to get into office, we have to get the power before we can change things.
Okay, so then
we can be purist and never get into office, or we can be pragmatic, get into office, and then bring about the change that we want.
I believe that abortion is the slavery of our day. And so you are less in line with John Adams or Ben Franklin, and more in line with people who are now being called nothing but slave owners, like Thomas Jefferson.
Well, I'm more in line with what Ronald Reagan said. Ronald Reagan said, sometimes we have to sort of like hold our nose and do something that isn't completely in line with our value system, recognizing that it will provide us with the opportunity to bring about the change, rather than always sitting on the sideline and complaining.
I don't feel like I've been complaining on the sidelines.
Well, I'm not talking about you in particular. But
well, I know, but I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are feeling the same way. That it's like, we really are willing to, I heard you talk about health savings accounts. I agree with health savings accounts. I give the best insurance money can buy. And it's almost bankrupted my company for doing it. But I believe in taking care of my people first. I want health savings accounts. There are ways that I know we can be much better at health, but the government won't let me. I'm willing to compromise in a million different things, but we're not willing to. Nobody's talking to us about compromising.
I totally understand what you're saying. Completely, 100%. But if there is a way, and I'm willing to listen, if there is a way to never compromise on anything and still win and still put ourselves in position to have the power to do what needs to be done, I'm with it.
Right, and I'm certainly not asking you to compromise on nothing, and I hope this is not a hostile interview for you.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, on that particular issue, I believe it is murder, and so I don't understand.
I totally believe that it's murder. There's no question about that. But It will still be murder, whether
it'll still be murder in it
or not, unless I can get a critical group of people in place so that I can do things that it doesn't occur again.
I understand, and I do believe that is what the founders. That was the 3/5 compromise. It wasn't about making slaves 3/5 a man because they were less than a man. It was because they didn't want to give any more power to the South. They had to cut that down, and because of that, they're being smeared, as horrible people. But they made the compromise, or we wouldn't have a republic. The name of the book is One Nation, What We Can All Do to Save America's Future. The man behind it is Ben Carson. And, I was just talking to a friend who's very politically savvy, and I said, who's going to be the next president? And he said, I honestly don't think it's anybody that everybody says it's going to be. He said, I think it's going to be somebody that is completely out of the system right now that's going to come up from behind. And when I saw your interview yesterday on The View, I thought, maybe it's Ben Carson.
The one thing I do know is that I think God still loves our country. We still acknowledge him, a large number of us. Some of us are a little bit timid about it, but I don't think he's going to forsake us, and I think he's going to give us what we need.
Dr. Ben Carson, thank you very much. We'll talk to you again.
Thank you.
Hey, Pat. Name of the book is One Nation. Sponsor this